Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy, and joining me this morning, Hartwell. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
So, this morning we're on the Condon Ring of Light. Is this the last one, or do we still have more? I can't
This is the
remember.
last codon ring. We still have two more of this codon ring, but it's the last
Yeah,
one. Because then we'll have
yeah,
looked at them all.
because we're going to split it. So, the Condon Ring of Light, gate 5, 9, 11, and 26. So, today we're going to be doing 5 and 9.
Correct.
So let's start with gate 5. What can you tell us about 5, the gene key 5?
Well, in human design, this is called the gate of fixed rhythms. Here in the gene keys, we're talking about the journey from impatience to timelessness via the way of patience. The amino acid is threonine. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this is one of the gates of the solar plexus. This is one of the gates that gives us power in life. So the shadow of impatience, like all of them, arises out of fear. You see, it's interesting because this is part of the channel of rhythm. And along with designs for human beings, um, Ra was also given the designs for all of other forms of life, mammals and birds and reptiles and such. And the difference between humans and all these other beings is that they have a smaller subset of the gene keys than we do, or of the
Mm-hmm.
gates that we do. And so one of the gates that's universal to all of life is gate 5, because it has to do with the natural rhythm that
Mm-hmm.
stabilizes organisms in whatever environment they happen to be living in. So the gene key 5 is all about the pulse of life as it moves through all beings.
Mm-hmm.
And the deep fear at the root of this gene key is that there is no underlying order to the universe. That's what at the fear level, that's what rises in us in
Mm-hmm.
relationship to this gene key. And so we don't feel safe in our own bodies. We distrust life. We don't think that, and because we distrust life, it makes us restless.
Mm-hmm.
It makes us impatient. It
Yeah.
makes us try to do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
When you tell me that it's related to animals, like my first thought was like, you know, a predator hunting and how they have to hide in the bush and be very patient and crawl along the ground in order to get their prey, right? Like they know what they have to do, right? Hmm.
sure, and that's certainly part of the rhythm of life, the circle of life.
Hmm.
Um, but I think this is even part of the design of plants. So
Hmm.
it's just that there's a natural order that underlies all of life, and that's what this gene key is about.
Hmm.
And as we come to terms with our fears, I like to think of it this way. Um, when you understand how holistic life is, if you do your own personal work, deal with your own fears, you actually help the collective.
Hmm.
Every advancement you make, every advancement I make for myself or you make for yourself
Hmm.
is actually uplifting the collective. And I like that.
Hmm.
Um, so impatience is really nothing more than a low frequency response to a particular set of circumstances. Where we distrust those circumstances, it makes us impatient, and we act in ways then that disrupt the pattern of life because we're not trusting it.
Hmm.
But at the gift level, it's patience. I mean, this seems kind of boring.
Hmm.
Overcome impatience and you become patient.
Yeah.
It's like a self-fulfilling sort of self-proving gift.
Hmm.
But what it really points out is that trust and patience are the natural ground of life.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not trusting life, then um, you're not really aligned with it.
Mm-hmm.
On the fear is keeping you from really aligning what the truth is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so as we embody the level of the gift at for the gene key 5,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes an open heartedness happens, an inner quietness and integration happen, and that's a lovely thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the level of time, the Siddhic level, we have timelessness. Um, and if we think about it, Richard Rudd talks about this a lot. But you might have, for instance, in your family, you maybe have a predisposition towards cancer, for instance. Um, but what you might have a predisposition for at a lower frequency, as you raise your frequency, your genetic equipment expresses in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, a lot of New Age writers have talked about this possibility that one of the ways to work towards your own healthiest and highest expression is to raise your frequency above that level of fear, so that then there's a possibility of your whole being healing and expressing a different aspect of your own genetics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you've probably thought about that a lot, haven't you, Kris?
Well, I mean, anytime that you move through fear, like, I don't know about you, but anytime that I've pushed through that barrier, I'm like, oh, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So, really, in my mind, it was going to be much worse,
Yeah.
than it was. So, I think that it's just facing fear itself, that is what we need to do, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And and then of course at the Siddhic level, what we're transcending for the movement from the gift shadow to the gift is a transcendence or a rising above fear. When
Mhm.
we move from the level of the gift to the city, which is still very rare, but we have our moments, what we're rising above, what we're ri- what we're doing is we're raising above our sense of identification with our own form. We move into the level of the universal.
Yeah.
We move
Being
into the
one.
level of the love which connects all of us.
Hmm.
So at this level of timelessness, um, a whole different experience is felt where we realize that the identity, the thing that we call ourselves, is nothing more than a pattern, and that pattern is something that at some point we are no longer bound by.
Hmm.
Um,
I think some people that reach this state, like they're like, oh, I don't even know what day it is or when it is, or, like they're not part of the what they call the matrix, like it's today and
yeah,
I got to do this today and that tomorrow, and they go with the flow of life, right? And you can
yes,
really you
and
can really see the difference.
um, they're no longer concerned about defending certain aspects of their
Hmm.
identity and who they thought they were.
Yeah,
It's not relevant to them anymore.
exactly. Yeah.
Um,
And I think when I think about this, I think that we've designed society to be like that, like, so for example, owning a store, you have to have hours. So, when people can show up, they know when people are there, they know when they can get their products or their services, or so it's structured so that it's very structured versus just going with the flow, right? Oh, well, if the store is open, it's open. If it's not, it's not. Right? But we
right.
don't operate that way.
without a trust in the pattern that underlies all life, we try and force our particular patterns on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um,
So are we?
so
So
we're ready to go on to the next one, I
that's
think.
what I was just going to say. So we're ready to go on to number 9. What can you tell us about Gene Key 9?
9 is also in the sacral.
Mm-hmm.
And it points down towards gate 52 in the root. So this is the journey from inertia to invincibility via the way of determination. Um, so how do we look at this? So the 9 is part of the collective logical channel. In the ancient I Ching, it's called the taming power of the small. So what this brings out is that it brings our awareness to the importance of things that might seem very small. Like for instance, there's a saying: "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, or with the first step." And
Mm-hmm.
that's, I think, a translation from some Eastern, maybe even the Tao Te Ching or the I Ching, or I'm not sure where it begins, but a clearer and probably more accurate translation is that the journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath our feet, but we've translated
Mm-hmm.
into that first step.
Mm-hmm.
So the taming power of the small on a negative level is how we get distracted by things.
Oh, like the little
Where,
details.
it's like, oh, I'll just pull out my phone and, play
Mm-hmm.
Yahtzee for 5 minutes, and then it becomes a half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
We get distracted by these little things that are irrelevant. We
Mm-hmm.
get pulled into details that don't really matter. And
Mm-hmm.
before you know it, it's like there's this inertia to your life. Here it might look like you're doing things, but you're not doing anything that matters.
Yeah, you're just busy for the sake of being busy.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's trivial. So unless something is beautiful or practical, you can pretty much, if it's not beautiful or it's practical, it's probably trivial and it's a distraction. Um, so we lose our connection because we get caught up in the small things, the trivial things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we lose our connection to our dream, to our purpose. But on the level of the gift, we understand what Aleister Crowley says. This is a quotation from him. Every intentional act is a magical act. And
Mm.
we often feel this when we begin things, right? It's like the power, beginnings have power.
Yeah.
And if there's a strong intention, a vision
Yeah, I can
behind
speak to
it.
that because that's my thing. Like, I'm really good at starting things. Like, I love starting things. But then once it's started, it like loses its shine. It's like, okay, well, I've done what I was supposed to do. Here you go. Like, I don't, you know, the routine and the monotonous of it, like, kind of isn't
Mm.
as you don't get that same rush and that same surge of power and, you know, adrenaline.
Well, you're a good example to illustrate something here, Kris, which is, this is for all of our listeners to think about. When we're going through these gene keys, or maybe when you're reviewing our past talks,
Mm-hmm.
you can think about, you might not have the specific gene key we're talking about, but you might actually have the one that's opposite to it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you do have the 52, which is
Mm-hmm.
opposite the 9.
Right.
So what that does is it magnetizes into your life more experiences around that dynamic of the 9 and the 52.
Mm-hmm.
Because the 52, which you have, is in the root, which is very much about the pressure and the drive to move forward in life.
Mm-hmm.
And the 9 is about it is about the power of repetition that you just said that you didn't particularly like.
Yeah.
But if that repetition is in alignment with your initiating impulse, then it
Mhm.
becomes extraordinarily powerful.
Right.
You know, um, it's like the more determined you are and the more aligned you are with a path with a heart, that is a path that has that energy, then the more, the less energy and willpower your life take. we
Right.
we kind of we kind of think that these people that are successful out there are always in that place of willpower and that
Hmm.
it's limitless, but that's not really the case. They know how to start something and keep the energy going, and when you have that determination, it carries you.
Hmm.
You don't need to be exerting that energy and willpower all the time.
Well, it's just like they understand balance. So they know if they put it down to bring some balance back into their life, they just go back and pick it up where they left off, right?
Right, or they understand how to keep that momentum alive.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, as we tune into that gift of determination, then our life has that sort of magnetic push to it. It is part of that rhythm.
Mhm.
Um, and we begin to be able to let go of our mental constructs, the things that have caused us to be diverted. The shadow of inertia. We leave our fears, our beliefs, our opinions, even our hopes behind, and we're able to move into a wider consciousness where our mind serves us rather than is always constantly undermining us. So,
Mhm.
at the level of the city, this turns out to be invincibility.
Mhm.
Um, it's kind of like if you know how to. Have you ever played one of those racing car games?
No, I suck at them.
Well, it's kind of like the faster and faster you go, you have to be very careful because even a small movement can completely, take you off the rails.
Yeah.
So I think the more alignment you are with life, it takes only small adjustments to keep you going.
Hmm.
And I think that's where the power of the small comes in.
It's doing the
Richard
little
Rudd said,
things.
yes.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the energy of Archangel Michael. You know, invincibility can therefore be defined as merging your individual awareness back into the consciousness of the universe. To be invincible is to surrender to all possible foes by dissolving your entire reality into them. So, really, invincibility is the most powerful force of energy in the universe is love, and when we're
Hmm.
in alignment with that, then we're invincible.
Hmm.
Um,
That's why they
and
say do
every
what you love.
pardon,
That's why they say do what you love for work and stuff. And then
yes,
just your life flows, right?
indeed, every intentional act is a magical act, setting in motion either a force of creativity or a force of decay.
Hmm.
Every point where you reach a natural beginning, remember this truth that the first few steps are critical to your evolution. Really feel into the energy of your vision or dream and hold on to that because it is that dream that will act as a lens to focus the power of magic and manifestation into your life. I like that. I hope you guys like
Hmm.
that too.
I
The
always like when
magic,
we talk about magic.
what's that?
I always like when we talk about magic and
Yeah,
miracles. Yeah.
indeed. So the ring of light, what we can extrapolate from it so far is that all four of them are about light and time. That's the theme
Mm.
behind these two things. So at the Siddhic levels, we see invincibility. We just saw that with the 9. We see timelessness, which was the 5. And next week we see light and invisibility become our theme.
Mm.
The
Right.
11 and the 26.
So, is there anything else that you want to tell us about these two gene keys, 5 and 9, before we wrap up for today?
Hmm. Well, it makes me think of that saying that I think arose out of the gay community. It gets better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we're in the shadow states of ourselves and we're young in experience and spiritual maturity, we might feel like life is dark and life is fearful and life is hell, but
Mm-hmm.
it gets better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when we are struggling in these dark spaces, we think that it's about, we project upon all of life that that is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
but our whole journey through the gene keys is is developing our ability to understand that the realm of miracles and magic and giftedness and genius is at all times always available.
Mm-hmm.
So we simply need to continue to walk a walk where gradually we move into the gift level of our own experience, into the levels beyond fear. And we will have this experience. We will have that sense of safety and love and expansiveness and all the good things that we're longing for.
Beautiful. So next week we're continuing with the Codon Ring of Light with Gene Key 11 and 26. So if you guys have those in your chart, be sure that you tune in and listen. We're actually doing at Clair-i-tea on Friday a mini gypsy carnival from 4 to 7, and you can get tickets for $88. And with that, you can do any four modalities for 10 minutes each, and just a little way for you to do a little taste test. So you can get those tickets on Eventbrite, on our website, or here at the store. And also, we just like to say, God bless. If you have anything else that you need, you can contact us here at 587 596 3333. Have a beautiful day.